السلام علیکم، امید ہے سب خیریت سے ہوں گے۔ آج کے ولاگ میں آپ کو لے کے چلتا ہوں بی آئی ٹی بیجنگ انسٹیٹیوٹ آف ٹیکنالوجی، جو چین کی ایک بہت بڑی اور مشہور یونیورسٹی ہے۔ آج ایک خاص تقریب ہوئی جس میں پاکستان کے وفاقی وزیر جناب احسن اقبال صاحب ہمارے درمیان موجود تھے۔ انہوں نے طلبہ سے نہ صرف بات چیت کی بلکہ ہمیں قیمتی رہنمائی بھی دی۔ انہوں نے کہا کہ تعلیم اور ٹیکنالوجی کے ذریعے ہم پاکستان کا مستقبل مزید روشن بنا سکتے ہیں۔ چین اور پاکستان کی دوستی کی مثال بھی انہوں نے بیان کی اور یہ بتایا کہ کس طرح دونوں ممالک ایک دوسرے کے ساتھ تعاون کر رہے ہیں۔ یہ لمحہ ہمارے لیے واقعی یادگار تھا، کیونکہ ایک بہت بڑے لیڈر کو قریب سے سننے اور ان کی باتیں سیکھنے کا موقع ملا۔ تو چلیں دوستو، اب براہ راست آپ کو ان کی باتیں سنواتے ہیں۔
And secured the Challenge Cup, International College Students Entrepreneurship Competition. The quality of
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable faculty members and administration of Beijing Institute of Technology, diplomats from Embassy of Pakistan, Secretary Ministry of Planning, Vice Chancellor, Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, and dear students. It is indeed a great honor and privilege for me to visit Beijing Institute of Technology, which is one of the premier institutes and learning centers in engineering and technology in China, and maybe we can call it MIT of China. So I am very honored to meet each one of you, because you have come far away from home to acquire knowledge, and I can relate to you because at one point I also left my home to study abroad. I know that how it is to leave your own home, the comfort of your own bedroom, the comfort of the food that your mother cooks for you, and the comfort of everything at home. And then when you have to make your own bed, you have to cook your own meals, and you also have to manage within your meager resources. So it is quite a challenge, but that is also part of training while you get education. And in our tradition, it is said that go as far as China to seek knowledge. And I was just at Center for Research and Development Research Center, with which we have recently just now signed an MOU to exchange experience of what China has done remarkably in last few decades, which is a miracle in human history, lifting 800 million people out of poverty in one generation. So I was telling them that our poet of Pakistan was very prophetic. He 100 years ago had predicted about China-Pakistan economic corridor, when he said that the sleeping giant of China is awakening from slumber, and the fountains in Himalayas are beginning to sprawl. So 100 years ago, he forecasted that China is rising and Himalayas are going to be the fountains of cooperation between us and Chinese people. So I think that is where he abstractly foresaw China-Pakistan economic corridor that will bind us and strengthen our relationship more strongly. Pakistan and China are two countries which have a relationship like no other country. Even in your own homes, between brothers and sisters, sometimes you have a good day and sometimes you have a bad day. But between Pakistan and China, in our entire history, we have never had a bad day. It has been a relationship that has blossomed in the spring season, and every year this spring season brings new flowers of cooperation. I was very lucky and fortunate to sign the first MOU in 2013 of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor when Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was invited to visit China immediately after taking oath of office. And when we signed this piece of paper, CPEC was just an abstract idea. It was an expression of goodwill or an expression of intent documented in on a paper. But within a couple of years, we were able to translate this understanding into tangible project which brought in $25 billion of investment in Pakistan. And I want you to remember, this was a time when Pakistan was suffering from 18 to 20 hours of load shedding. We did not have enough electricity in Pakistan to even run our hospitals or offices or homes uninterrupted for 1 hour. At that time, we were looking for investments, we were looking for investors who could come and set up power plants in Pakistan. Not even our own investors considered Pakistan as very safe to invest in Pakistan. At that point in time, President Xi Jinping visited Pakistan in 2015. Originally, it was planned for 2014, but at that time we had some special situation in Islamabad, so he had to postpone his visit, and ultimately he came in April 2015. And when he came, we signed $46 billion worth of MOUs. The next day, Wall Street Journal, which is considered as a Bible in the financial sector or the most authentic publication amongst investors, when it published this news on the front page that China has signed $46 billion worth of MOUs with Pakistan, that single news changed the perception of Pakistan in the eyes of investors. When they saw that China can trust Pakistan with such a big investment, what are we missing? So after that, many more investors queued up and they wanted to come to Pakistan. But I want to tell you that it was only China that came to our rescue, and it truly showed and proved that friend in need is friend indeed, and people of Pakistan can never forget that gesture of China, that it came to help of Pakistan at that critical moment. So when we started CPEC, it focused mainly on the infrastructure gaps that Pakistan initially at that time had in its energy infrastructure, in its physical infrastructure. We were able to construct motorways. Hazara Expressway is one, Multan Sector Motorway is another. We were able to build infrastructure in Gwadar Port. We were able to lay down fiber optic cable through Khudiyab Pass that provided us an information highway, and also our energy projects. And mind you, it was a very broad portfolio of energy projects that came through CPEC. And to just tell you that how important that investment was, not only it gave us more than 8,000 megawatts of energy to help us overcome the energy shortage, but it also enabled us to tap black gold that was hidden in Thar Desert for 75 years, and we could not tap it. And that is the coal deposit of Thar, which is good enough for 400 years to give us 10,000 megawatt of energy, but we could not tap it because we lacked both finances and technology. So CPEC actually enabled us to do mining for Thar coal and also convert that coal into productive asset, and we today have the cheapest electricity produced from the thermal coal, which is also environmentally safe because all the plants that we put up were compliant with the environmental standards. So CPEC helped us in the first phase build strong infrastructure. Unfortunately, after 2018, the momentum could not continue for the new government scandalized CPEC for no reason. As a result, there was loss of confidence amongst investors, and all those investors who had come to Pakistan slowly went to Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. And that shows what is the importance of continuity of policies for any country. If you do not have continuity of policy, that hurts no one else but the country itself. But subsequently, when we came back in 2022, we again revived CPEC, engaged our Chinese friends, and as a result of that, on 1st of August 2023, Vice Premier of China, Mr. Halifun, with whom I had the honor and privilege of working as a counterpart when he was chairman of NDRC on CPEC projects, he visited Pakistan and he announced that we are now ready to work with Pakistan on phase 2 of CPEC, and President Xi Jinping wants this second phase to focus on 5 new corridors. Corridor of growth, CPEC phase 2 should bring growth in Pakistan. Corridor of livelihood, it should be able to provide livelihoods to the people and also contribute towards socio-economic development. 3, corridor of innovation. It should also build technology links because we have now entered a new age, which is an age of digital revolution or disruption and innovation. 4, a corridor of green energy, because now we live in an age where climate change is a big challenge. And 5th, a corridor of open regional cooperation, so that we are able to link with the region and can create a bigger regional market and can have more opportunities from our cooperation for the whole region, and so we create a community of shared future and prosperity with more people in our region. So these were the 5 corridors he outlined, and recently when Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif visited China, we signed an MOU to now implement these 5 corridors. Today I'm just coming by presiding over co-chairing the 14th JCC meeting of CPEC with the Vice Chairman of NDRC China. And I consider myself very, lucky that out of 14 JCC meetings held so far, I have had the honor of chairing 11 out of those 14 JCC meetings. So we have today decided to now move with full speed on the CPEC phase 2. So why I am here? I am here because CPEC phase 2 moves beyond brick and mortar. The first phase was very much focused on infrastructure, which is brick and mortar. The second phase moves beyond brick and mortar to brains and minds. It takes us or prepares us for the new knowledge revolution that is now affecting every country and the whole of humanity. We are a generation that has seen the journey from slates to 5G in almost 6 decades. The change we saw in 6 decades, probably you are going to see more change in the next 6 years. That is the speed of innovation. And if you want to truly know how fast this innovation is becoming a disruptor, you just have to look back and look at the fate of Nokia and BlackBerry. These were two dinosaurs just a few years ago, and because they failed to keep pace with innovation and the changes that were happening, they were completely wiped off the landscape or the market. So that is why it is important that we understand this new age and try to prepare new foundations for the new economy. And while in the industrial economy it was important to build motorways, it was important to build power houses, which still it is important to have physical infrastructure. But this new economy depends more on building academic collaboration, research exchange, and joint innovation hubs and clusters of innovation. And this is possible by a strong link between academia and industry. As you are well aware, better, more knowledgeable than most of us as you are studying here, you can see that the origins of China's technological development are all in its universities. It is the research that takes place in the laboratories. That research is translated into unicorns. That research is translated into multi-billion-dollar businesses, and that research is commercialized to bring benefits for the country. So, actually in this new age, universities are the places where new ideas are born. Those new ideas are converted into products, and those products are commercialized, and they have value for the society and for the economy. So university is the front line of innovation and the front line of development in this new age. So as most of you are studying here at one of the leading universities, I would say that you are the future architects of Pakistan's future also. Pakistan, one question always comes to every Pakistani's mind, that why have we not been able to keep pace with the world? We have been leaders most of the times. We have attempted to fly many a times, but none of our udans or flights could sustain every time we crashed. Why? If you look at the countries that have succeeded after World War II, starting from Japan to South Korea to China to Malaysia to Singapore to Vietnam, Gulf countries, Turkey or Bangladesh, Vietnam, India, whatever, you will find that development is not a policy alone. Because if you have a seed which is capable of giving you 100 kilograms of production per acre, that seed alone is not a guarantee of the harvest. To get full potential of harvest from that seed, you need to provide that seed an enabling environment. If the weather is not right, if the land is not prepared, if the land does not have the right moisture, if the land does not have stability, if the seed is not given water in time, if the seed is not given fertilizer in time, so if that ecosystem is not protected in which seed is supposed to grow, best of the best seeds will also fail. So I think one important lesson that you have to also learn from China that it is not just your degree that is important, that you bring back your degree home. You also need to bring back lessons from China's development. And that lesson is common in every successful country that we see in last 5 decades. Success comes through establishing an ecosystem for that country to progress and develop. And that ecosystem rests on 4 pillars. The first pillar is peace. No country in human history has ever progressed with conflicts. So you must ensure that there is peace within and outside. Without peace, you cannot grow, and I think you must have now seen that how wise Chinese leadership is, that while others may like China to get sucked into conflicts, but China is always very wise to navigate its path in a way that it has avoided conflicts because it needs peace for development. The second important pillar of development is political stability. In human history, there is not a single example where any country has developed with political instability. So, you must have stability if you want development and progress. The third element is that in each of these countries, you find that they translated their stability into decade-long tenures of successful regimes, because it takes at least a decade for a policy to deliver results. Policies don't deliver before a decade. You can do a project in 3-4 years. You can construct a highway, a dam in 3, 4, 5 years. But to get results from a policy, you need at least continuity for a decade. And therefore, you find in every successful country, you look at our neighboring country, India, Manmohan Singh 10 years, Modi 15 years, go beyond Bangladesh, Hasina Wajid 15 years, so go beyond Malaysia, Mahathir 22 years, Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew 31 years. In China, since 49, there is one party, every president does a 10-year term or 15-year term. In Japan, since Second World War, LDP is ruling except for 3 years there. So there is continuity. In Turkey, 22 years of Tayyip Erdogan. In GCC countries. So you find tenures of decade or long that have provided them that stretch where policies could germinate. But then if the fourth element is missing, that stability and continuity can actually become a curse, because then it will consolidate sometimes or strengthen the status quo. You also need the fourth pillar, that is a commitment to reform and modernize, so that you use that stability for upgrading your economy, upgrading your skills and capabilities. So each of these countries where there was stability, continuity, the leadership also had a progressive agenda. We had progressive agendas, but every time our progressive agendas were cut short. For example, in 1991, Pakistan was the first country to introduce economic reforms in South Asia. But those reforms were cut down in 2 to 3 years, and India borrowed those reforms when Manmohan Singh was the finance minister, and they continued on those reforms for 10 years, and in 2000 they overtook us. Then we did Vision 2010. After 2 years there was martial law and it was thrown out. We had Vision 2025. We were well on its path to achieve top 25 slot by 2025. In 2017, PricewaterhouseCoopers gave an assessment that if Pakistan continued on this trajectory, by 2030 it will be in the top 20 economies. But in 2018 again there was a jerk, there was a reversal of policy, and we lost our path. In 2022, when we came into government, we were facing almost a default situation, where there were bets happening that how long will it take for Pakistan to become Sri Lanka? 2 weeks or 4 weeks, because on 1st of April 2022, we had internally defaulted, and now people were second guessing how long will it take for us to default externally. At that time, I must give credit to the courageous leadership shown by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who was heading a coalition government, that we took some very tough decisions. And as a result, not only we averted the default, but as a result of which, within 2 years, we have seen that the inflation has come down from 38% to 4.5%. The policy rate of the bank has come down from 23% to 11%. And similarly, the stock market has gone from 80,000 index to 154,000 index, making new records. And this is now, according to many international experts, almost a mini miracle that Pakistan has shown. And as a result, in last 1 year, each and every international credit rating agency, whether it is Fitch or it is Standards and Poor or it is Moody's, they have upgraded Pakistan, that Pakistan has shown progress and has shown macroeconomic stability. So with this stability now, we have launched Udan Pakistan program that seeks to put Pakistan in the league of $1 trillion economy by 2035. Now this is a little ambitious target, but not unachievable. It will require a stretch of effort. It will require an extra plunge. If we make that extra effort and if we make that extra plunge, yes, we can achieve it. But if we do business as usual, then probably we may not be able to achieve it. So therefore, it is extremely important that now we commit ourselves, learn from our history, and ensure that Pakistan builds the right ecosystem for development. We cannot afford more disruptions. We cannot afford more discontinuities of policies. We cannot afford more of polarization in the country. We all need to rally for the economic progress, because in today's world, as you know, some time back one US president said, it is economic stupid, that it is the economic strength of the country that actually gives you strong hold in every field and department. We have recently, Alhamdulillah, won Marka-e-Haq, and that has changed the profile of Pakistan. That has given Pakistan a new standing in the Committee of Nations. And as a result, you see that now where Pakistan is standing, and after that, we also recently signed a defense pact with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. That is another landmark for Pakistan. Having won Marka-e-Haq, now we have to prepare ourselves for Marka-e-Tarakki, the battle for development. And the path for battle for development goes through winning battle of innovation. And we must prepare ourselves to upgrade our capabilities in each and every sector, whether it is agriculture. From commodity agriculture economy, we have to become value-added, high-value, agro-based agriculture economy. If it is industry, we have to create industrial products that meet international standards, and we have to make Made in Pakistan an international and global brand of quality. If it is technology, we have to create innovation ecosystem that will use the brain power of our youth and put Pakistan as a leading information power on the world map, which is actually also happening now that people are seeing Pakistanis are very intelligent, our youth is full of enterprise, and young Pakistani tech entrepreneurs are making their presence on the global scene. So these are the areas where Udaan Pakistan focuses. Our first and foremost priority is developing a strong export-led growth platform, because that is where we have been weak, and unless we become an exporting nation, we will not be able to sustain our growth. Our second E pillar is E-Pakistan, how to become a techno economy, how to connect our economy with the power of technology. Our third E is environment and climate change, and this university is one of the leading universities in the world on sustainable development. So I think you know that what kind of challenges we face back home. So many of you will inshallah bring back solutions that will help us face the challenge of climate change and how to overcome food and water security challenge, which is a byproduct of climate change. Fourth E is energy. How do we have affordable, efficient energy and renewable energy? And fifth is equity, ethics and empowerment. How do we empower our people so that no one is left behind? And that means how do we give good education, good health, and how do we control our population growth, which has gone out of control, to have a balance between our growth, development, and resources, and how many people we have. Because we don't want an army of illiterates, we need quality of human resource. As now, it is not the muscle power that counts, it is the brain power of a nation that matters. So the fifth E relates to equity in empowerment of women and youth, and ethics. How do we create a value-based system that is essential for development? And as you know, that in China, while they build modern infrastructure, they also try to preserve their ethics and values, which are very critical for development. So this is the 5 E's framework that's very well aligns with the 5 corridors of CPEC Phase 2, and we are now working on them, and we hope that you are going to be the torch bearers of this journey, because our generation is playing the last maybe 100 meters of our professional life. But from here to 2047, when Pakistan will celebrate its centennial, it is your generation that is going to lead this journey. It is you who are going to be the torch bearers of Pakistan's destiny. So you must prepare yourself for that challenge, and I'm hopeful that each one of you will utilize this time that you have here. And I tell you, you will never ever get this time again to learn and to grow when you are in university. Once you go into practical life, there are so many 101 things. So make best use of this time, equip yourself with knowledge that will take you into future. But while you graduate, also understand that the knowledge you have today will very soon become obsolete. So you have to become a lifelong learner. Just as your mobile phone, if you do not upload the new patch, its operating system stops working. So similarly, you will have to prepare yourself to upgrade your knowledge every now and then, so that you are keeping pace with the innovation that is happening. So with these words, it is really a pleasure for me to meet you, to share with you what we are doing, where we are headed, and if there are any questions and answers, I'll be too happy to answer. And my best wishes for your success at BIT, and I hope each one of you will be, and when you come back, you will bring that ecosystem of China with you to be the change agent in Pakistan and be the innovator that Pakistan needs for its future. Pakistan Zindabad. So any questions? Number of opportunities, but I'll tell you my story. I got an opportunity to study at one of the world's top business school, Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. And studying there, I had all sorts of opportunities. Any Fortune 500 company would open its door for me. But I had a mission that I will go back and do something for my country. But when I returned to my country, I did not come with this expectation that I have a degree from world's top university and I am going back. There will be someone standing at the airport with a bouquet and there might be a carpet for me that here is a very talented young man from top business school coming back to Pakistan and let's find some position for him. I went back with this sentiment and mission that I have to be my own path builder and my own pathfinder. And in this process, I will come across all sorts of problems because I am going back to my country, which is a developing country. There will be all kinds of issues and challenges, and the very reason I am going back is that I want to make my contribution to make it a better place. So I had very clear expectations. As a result of that, I've had many ups and downs in my career. But I can tell you that not for a single day I have regretted why I chose to come back to Pakistan. So when you go back with the mission that you are going to be your own pathfinder and your own path builder. We right now need a generation that is going to be a developer, not an inhabitant. There are different types of people. Developers are the ones who cut the land, who flatten the land, who build places. And once the place is built, then you have another type of people who are inhabitants, who just come there to open the locks and occupy the apartments. So right now we need a generation that will serve as developers of our future. Come back. If you are capable, if you have talent, I tell you there are 101 opportunities you will find in Pakistan. So Pakistan is not short of opportunities. While we are encouraging youth in different positions and different openings, you will have those opportunities for you. But as I said, come back with the commitment that I have to build my own path and I have to be a pathfinder. Academia and industry link. Now we have built a new performance system for the universities. 7 indicators for every university on which every university will be audited. 1, its academic program. 2, what is the quality of research and innovation? 3, what is the academia and industry linkage? What is the linkage of that university with industry? 4, what is the community service of that university? University is not just supposed to be an ivory tower where you have lectures and you have, very highly rated professors and students. It must also be giving back to the society in some way. So what is that community service that university is doing? 5th, how is every university technologically prepared for the new technology age? What is its technological platform or capability? High performance organization. And 7th, what is the quality of its product? What is it? Partnership so that we have an ecosystem like we have in China. How can you contribute to stability? I think the best contribution you can make to stability is to be always on the side of stability. Don't be on the side of disruption. And I tell you, it's very personal for me. The kind of polarization we have seen in our society is poisonous. And what creates this polarization are two viruses, if they are injected into human minds, those two viruses are capable of turning human mind into beast. Virus of hate and virus of prejudice. It takes away reason from you. You know, few years ago, when I was Interior Minister in 2018, and we were fighting against some extremist groups, one young man tried to take my life, and that bullet is still in my body. I was lucky. God saved me and gave me new life. But I didn't know that young man. But he had been fed so much hate through social media. That hate turned him into an extremist. So you should always be very careful that never ever let this social media feed into your minds messages of hate. Because once you have this hate in your mind, you lose reason. So, be always on the side of harmony, unity. This universe works on the concept of harmony. You see, you have black holes, you have stars, you have constellations, you have all sorts of things. How is this universe together? Because all these different things are working in harmony. And if there was no harmony, this universe would have just, collapsed, or the different stars would have collided with each other, and there would be utter chaos in the universe. So this is what China has also learned. That how do you create political stability and social solidarity and harmony for development? That is very critical, and I think be always on the side of peace, be always on the side of harmony, be always on the side of understanding others. If you have a difference, you can resolve that difference through dialogue. You don't have to get physical, or you don't have to get extremism. Learn to find unity in diversity. Reforms in agriculture, yes, we are, recently we have sent 1,000 agriculture scientists to China. And the purpose was they must learn new technologies and bring those technologies and applications back home so that we modernize agriculture. Your issue that we are turning our green land into brown land is very, very, very valid. And we have formed a task force because this is something that relates to provinces. So we have formed an inter-province task force and have asked all the provincial governments to do land zoning and put limits on these new permits for housing complexes and go for climate change countries. You cannot reverse climate change, but what you can do is bring in resilience in your systems so that you can minimize the damage that climate change does. And just to give you one example, in my district, we saw worst flooding after 1988. There was, River Ravi overflowing, there was these nalas from Jammu overflowing, high floods, and more than half of our district was in 8 or 5 feet water. Not a single life was lost because that person could not be rescued in time. Now that is the capability that we have for disaster management. We have developed that capability. As a result, we were able to save human lives. Otherwise, with flooding of this magnitude, many hundreds could have been drowned. So this is how we have to also build resilience in our infrastructure so that infrastructure can withstand more floods. We have to bring smart agriculture, seeds which are more weather resistant, and we can save crops from high temperature or high rains. So that is where we are investing. And today in my meeting with NDRC, this is where I asked for help that if China could give their top experts so that we can have a national climate resilience strategy, and China also can help us with its experience and knowledge. So we certainly look forward to working with China in this area in phase 2. IPP's thermal, yes, now in last actually 3-4 years, Pakistan has added about 6,000 megawatt of solar energy into its system. So this is one of the most successful stories, that how fast we have integrated solar energy into our system. But that creates another paradox for us, because when you increase this contribution of renewables, there is now extra electricity on the grid. What do you do with it? You make capacity payment for the electricity that you don't use. So there is this trade-off. You have to balance while you have this base load on the grid, but you also have the renewables, and how can you blend them so that we can optimally use both. But certainly we are encouraging use of renewables in our energy portfolio. We have more hydel projects, we have nuclear projects, which are all green energy projects. So thank you very much. I hope I have answered all your questions.
And as the youngest of all of them, they are all older than me, and I am the youngest, and I am learning a lot from them. And this is my first experience that having a person like a person in front of me and giving a speech. So the first question that I would like to ask is about the security and safety in Pakistan. We are having a lot of disadvantages, a lot of crimes, robbery, just because of lack of security. And here I have seen in a small shop there are 10 or 15 cameras. And in Pakistan, if there is one camera in a small shop, that is a big thing. So what should we do about the security and safety?
We are now, in Punjab particularly, the Chief Minister has ordered installation of safe city in I think 80 cities, major cities of Punjab. And I think Lahore was one of the first cities to have the most advanced safe city project at that time, and Prime Minister was the Chief Minister. And we also are now expanding our safe city project in Islamabad. So most of the big cities will have these technology led interventions to provide people better security. But our big challenge right now is to defeat the remnants of extremists that have again, whom we had completely washed away in 2017-18. Not as iota of them was left. They had all been flushed out of the country. But unfortunately, after 2018, they were brought back into Pakistan. But now we are again fighting them. Our brave military every day makes a sacrifice, and inshallah, very soon we'll again clean our country from these extremists, and there'll be more security for our people. But this continues to be our major challenge. It is also linked to the economy of the country. When your economy is doing well, relatively people are employed and there is less crime. But once the economy goes down and people are without jobs, and then they take up street crime or other things. So I'm very hopeful that as we now recover and economy improves, we are investing in the training of our police force to be better enforcer of law and order. We use technology. Hopefully, when you come back, you'll find more safe Pakistan.
Okay, how time flies. We are.
लड़के कह रहे हैं सवाल हमने किए, तस्वीर आपने
यही ग्रुप बनाते हैं रोशनी बेहतर।
Okay, brother. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Really enjoyed. Have a nice day. Okay, thank you.
آخر میں ان کا شکریہ ادا کرنا چاہوں گا کہ انہوں نے اپنا قیمتی وقت نکال کر ہمیں موٹیویٹ کیا۔ آپ سب کا بہت شکریہ۔ ملیں گے اگلی ویڈیو میں، تب تک کے لیے اللہ حافظ۔